All right, well, we can get started, I think. And Teddy will join us a little bit late.
Okay, shall I go for it?
Yeah, go ahead, Margaret.
So in Catskill, a thriving village existed before European settlement near where Catskill Creek flows into the Hudson River. Its people called themselves Mahekanu after the river they called Mahekan, which means the river with waters that are never still. This is because the river flows south toward the ocean at low tide, but changes direction when high tide pushes the water northward. In English, we now call this tribe Mohican. The Mohicans grew corn, beans, and squash, called the Three Sisters because of their value as companion plants. They also gathered wild nuts and berries. They hunted elk, deer, rabbits, turkey, woodchucks, and other animals for meat, and they fished and gathered oysters. They tapped maple trees for syrup. They would store food in pits lined with grass or bark to last through the winter or eat when crops failed. Most of the Catskill Mohicans moved westward after European settlement. During the early 1800s, broken tools and fire pits were still found where their village had been. A rock formation by the creek came to be called Hoppinose after a Mohican man named Hop, who stayed in Catskill after his tribe moved west. In the early 1800s, Catskill Point was excavated to extend the bank, and a native burial ground was uncovered. I'm sorry to say, it's unlikely the excavators treated these burials with much respect. Today, the Ramshorn Livingston Nature Sanctuary, where we went on a field trip, preserves 612 acres of wild shoreland where plants and wildlife still exist that were there in Mohican times. We can honor the Mohicans by continuing to preserve the sanctuary and treat it with respect.
Thank you, Margaret. Lovely. So thank you all for being here today. When you're working on climate change at the local level, it can be helpful to think about community engagement through partnerships, to look around, to see which community groups are already active and reach out. So today, for our local champions Zoom today, we wanted to kind of get the juices flowing around what organizations might be present in your own communities and get inspired by our guests today and start thinking about ways to collaborate on projects or events. So the 4 individuals that we've invited today each represent different organizations. And while climate change may not be the center of each one of their mandates, there are interesting points of intersection, and they all engage with communities in interesting ways. So today's session is all about getting inspired. So we have Shaniqua Perry, who's a youth leader from Homer, New York, which is a bit north of us. And we have Susie Fromer, who is the coordinator for the Hudson Valley Repair Cafe Network. And then Emily Vale, executive director of the Hudson River Watershed Alliance. And Rebecca Smith Aldrich, who is the executive director of the Mid-Hudson Library System. So thrilled to have all these wonderful people with us today. Our format today is we're going to give each of them a turn to present and introduce their own organization. And then what we're going to do is actually break up into breakout rooms, 4 breakout rooms, one for each of our special guests. And then we'll have you all rotate through. So you'll be kind of popping in and out, but I think we'll have about 10 minutes in each breakout room. And if folks are feeling shy, we have questions, kind of prompts to help you with conversation, and we'll be sharing those in the chats, Paige and I, and we can also share this document. It's all in a Google document. We can share that in the chat as well, so you can all have reference to it. All right, does that sound good? Paige, would you like to share that Google Doc just directly in the chat so everyone has reference to it?
Sure.
All right. So first up, we're going to have Shaniqua go first. I'm actually going to share my screen. I've got her presentation on my computer, which includes a really amazing video documentary that was made about her group. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let me play the slideshow. All right, does that look good, everybody?
All right. I'm Shaniqua. I recently graduated from SUNY ESF with my degree in environmental biology. But before that, in high school, I worked with the Village of Homer in their Climate Smart Communities program. And I was their community coordinator until around when I graduated college. You can go to the next slide. And I'm babysitting my niece right now, so you might hear her in the background a little bit. But I just want to start with Homer's story. My environmental club in high school, we had done a lot of projects at our school, and we had kind of run out of the typical projects that a school would do. So we wanted to branch out into our community. So at a Climate Smart Community, or a climate summit, youth climate summit, we we went to a presentation done by the DEC of the Climate Smart Communities, and we thought it was awesome. So basically, as soon as we got back to the hotel, we emailed the mayor and we got a meeting with him. We showed him what we had done, and then he actually had us lead the task force, which is pretty unique so far in New York. And there are some other communities that have youth on their task forces, but they don't typically lead it. So that was a nice, and then we did get bronze certified, and I think they're still working towards silver at this point. And then the next slide is just a video that we put together with Saranac Lake and Homer and the DEC, NOAA as well. And it's just going to pretty much give you an overview of how important it is to have youth on your task forces and what they can offer.
Okay.
It's okay to be scared because this is a scary topic, but it's good to turn that fear into motivation to go out and do your very best.
I think youth bring a certain level of passion. It's really our future that we're dealing with here.
Youth can be great assets to their local communities. I think many young people in New York State are very concerned about the impacts that they're seeing related to climate change. And now, thanks to the skill sets that they gain at the Wild Center's Youth Climate Summits, and now thanks to the New York State Climate Smart Communities program, they have a pathway to collaborate with their local leaders and actually work together to make climate solutions in their rural communities.
So what we're finding from our work at NOAA in partnership with the Wild Center and a consortium of other organizations is that youth are playing a critical role in developing community resilience. They are engaging their leaders, they're building more capacity in those communities to actually do the heavy lifting of, say, vulnerability assessments or greenhouse gas assessments.
People are powerful agents of change in their schools, in their homes, and in their communities. Why? Because young people are unafraid to challenge authority. And I know this personally as I have 3 young daughters. The climate movement needs the power of young people to drive it forward.
Here at the Wild Center, we work with a lot of young people that are really passionate about climate change, and they want to do something about it in their schools and communities. Every year at our Youth Climate Summit, we invite the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Office of Climate Change to come and present about their Climate Smart Communities program.
Most of the audience that we focus on through the Climate Smart Communities program is local government officials, staff, planners, people like that. So initially I wasn't quite sure what role young people would sort of play. And I would say the Village of Homer is especially a unique case where the mayor happily, gladly, I think as he put it, sort of gave the reins over to high school students to start a climate smart task force and make them the chairs of that task force.
Actually, they reached out to me to bring me into the high school to give me a tour of some of the things that they had been working on. The Homer Green team, all the things they've done blew me away. And all I kept thinking in my mind was, I want them involved in the whole Climate Smart Communities program.
After attending the Wild Center Summit, we were really inspired to make a difference in our community. And one way we sought to do that was the Climate Smart Communities program. And so when we saw that the village was registered and saw that they passed a resolution along the lines that the program suggested, we looked up the email for our mayor and just sent him an email.
So we decided to go outside of our school sphere and move into the community. And we thought our local government would be a great place to start. They have all the resources.
So it ended up being a perfect partnership between us because we as students have free time to devote to something like that. And the village board and the mayor had the experience to guide us through the process.
And the more I spoke with them and the more we talked, the more I realized they should actually be the team leaders of this. They should be the leading driver.
And I was really impressed with their earnestness and their ability to be able to think outside the box on a lot of different issues.
Well, we're actually working on a greenhouse gas inventory, and that really helps to establish what work needs to be done.
They all usually want to hear what we have to say and will respond to us. Like, they take us seriously.
They act as catalysts. They are inspiring, and they help them sort of move forward in a way that I don't think without that kind of initial, that push and that hopeful perspective that they offer, I don't think it happens as quickly.
I've worked in politics and government for the last 20 years, and I've actually not experienced this before. They're very focused, they're very driven, they're very passionate.
They're asking us what to do instead of them asking us to do something is really nice.
I want them to have full ownership of this because I think that helps them understand just what an important role they have in this whole process is.
One of the things that we've learned from the Wild Center is that climate change is a global problem, and we will all feel its effect. Even the small village of Homer, New York can make an impact in this global problem. And I think the really exciting thing is if we could encourage other municipalities across the state to do the same thing.
I mean, there's a great saying, think globally, act locally.
It's really going to be our youth's community moving forward that we're going to have to deal with some of these issues.
It helps local government officials think about the future, and I think it helps them be more hopeful because they have these lively, knowledgeable young students who have gone to a youth climate summit. They know what they're talking about.
It feels like I can make a difference in my community, and that's really important, especially in the face of this like ecological disaster.
It's our now, it's our future. All our kids will deal with the problems. We have to take care of the issues now, otherwise they're not going to be able to take care of it.
We are making an impact on the climate crisis, even though we're just a small little village.
My message to those involved is this: keep up the great work. Keep challenging those in positions of power and show the world what climate action looks like. We can't do this without you.
There's a lot of work it takes to move a community from vulnerable to resilient. In order for that to happen, especially in rural communities, you need people to do work. What we're seeing is youth are playing a much more foundational role in that, more so than we anticipated. And it's a really wonderful surprise.
This is their world we're moving into. It's not going to be ours for much longer. It's going to be theirs. And so they should be in the driver's seat of determining what happens and how we proceed, especially when it comes to things like the environment.
Yeah, so that was a video that we put together that we use a lot to help promote youth in climate task force. This last slide is just my contact information. You can get a hold of me, and then links to the Homer website and our certification and the video if you want to look at it again.
Thank you so much, Shaniqua. It's great. And I'll be sharing all of our guest presenters' slides. I can put those up on our event page afterwards for folks' future reference. Okay, great. So thank you so much, Shaniqua. Next up, we have Susie. Susie is going to be presenting on the Repair Cafe system. And unmute yourself, Susie.
All right, I will share my screen. Yeah. Okay. All right, so everything's good. I have a whole bar in front of it, but so yeah, I'm the new coordinator for Repair Cafe Hudson Valley, which is a consortium of repair cafes in the Hudson Valley, but also the Catskills and the Capital Region. So call ourselves Hudson Valley, but we've expanded beyond those bounds. And so the question is, where did this Repair Cafe Hudson Valley come from? And this is John Wackman, who until 2021 was the coordinator, and he brought the whole movement, which started in Amsterdam in 2009, to New Paltz in 2013. And his enthusiasm and dedication really inspired all these other people to start cafes in their towns, and that's really where this whole movement started here. And he also co-authored Repair Revolution with Elizabeth Knight, another leader from Warwick, and it really helped a lot of people start new cafes everywhere, all over the world. So what is a repair cafe? It's a place where you get your things fixed for free by volunteer repairers who are possibly also your neighbor. Each cafe is locally run. So even though I'm here to coordinate and to help people who want to start new ones, you have to have someone in your town who is willing to start it. And that's how it happens. And repair cafes, they also transform the throwaway economy, reduce what goes into the waste stream, preserve traditional repair skills, and also they foster community as well as sustainability and resilience. And just this is a little bit by the numbers. In 2022, last year, there were 69 different cafes held in all these different locations, and there are more locations this year, so there promises to be more. Each one, there we go. Each one brings about 30 to 50 guests, each with 1 to 2 items, and about 70 to 80% of those are fixed. And then sometimes things are fixed afterwards with things that were purchased or advised by the fixers. And we're really here to teach people that the 4th R is repair, and to really get us out of that mindset of the throwaway economy. And then how many cafes are there now? Now, this is just a quick map. There are 45 cafes. So that's how much this has spread in the past. And this is some of our cafes right here. You can see by county. The Capital Region is multiple counties, so we haven't split that one up, but you can just see how big the movement sort of has become. And so, everything is volunteer. Nobody makes money on any of these things. And so one of the most important things is to get a free location. And so the question sometimes arises, well, what kind of places do host? And the answer is so many different places. So here's just a few of them. Makerspace, that's a fantastic place to have a cafe because there's so many amenities that can be used. Churches, very, very common. Community centers, fire stations. This one's the Good at Work Institute in Kingston. It's a nonprofit, and so many libraries have gotten involved into this. And it's just a fabulous, fabulous synergy. A lot of libraries have tool libraries, and that's how they sort of had the entree. But it's just a really nice way to use the community aspects of a library and really tie it in. So what kind of fixes happen? What kind of fixers? Each cafe is different. It depends on who is there, but typically this is the most popular station, which is electrical and lamp repair, is the #1 fix requested at Repair Cafe in the US. So that's electrical is a good station to have. Then there's mechanical. which is sometimes they're overlappy, like a fan is both mechanical and electrical, but this is just an example of mechanical. Their jewelry, textiles came next. Here we have textiles. We have a zipper fixer as well who comes sometimes and specifically does zippers, but we do a lot of it's up to a cafe if they want to do hemming or not. That's a big topic of discussion, but certainly repairs and fixes and patches and all that. Jewelry, there's me, and watches. We've expanded. We try to do as many watches. A lot of battery replacement has become something we are trying to do for people. Woodworking is a very, very common thing to have. Sometimes we have specialized people. This guy has a fantastic setup. You come, you plug your computer in, he can really help diagnose the things that are going on with it. Bike repair is pretty common. Knife sharpening is very popular for people. Knife and blade, this guy's doing a scissors here. So that's also a very nice thing for people to have. And gluing, just all kinds of broken things. This was a nice little, they sent us a fixed picture of it afterwards, and the little girl was helping, which was very sweet. Sometimes we have specialty people who could do knitting or darning repairs, which is how you fix a sweater. The other question is what else might be at a cafe? Usually a hospitality station, coffee and tea. That's sort of part of our aesthetic, that we're welcoming you and we have a little to have while you're waiting. And that's the original impetus from Amsterdam, had that sort of cafe feeling. Any sort of information table if you want to have, composting, recycling, master gardeners. Often there's a kids table to get kids involved. Music can be okay if it's not too loud. And other specialty fixers as available, in your town. I've had a luthier come and do instrument repair, and we have a welder who comes to several and does welding. It's unbelievable. This is just a quick example of this is Pleasant Valley in a town hall. A great big space is fantastic, but it doesn't have to be. Really the one thing you really need for a repair cafe is electrical outlets. And we've even had some in parks. So, it just depends on what you have. We did some during the pandemic outdoors in parks, but typically if you have the electrical outlets is the main thing that you need. This is a smaller space, a little bit of a church with an open space, so you can work it out differently. So these are just some fixes of things that have, can be fixed. I mean, it really runs the gamut of what comes in, but restringing beads, very simple, but you have to do the whole thing over. People were surprised by that. This was a table made at the Makerspace in Schenectady, where they literally remade that pale leg at the space that day. That was fantastic. This is one of our really talented fixers. This is like at least a 2-hour fix on this clock that had a music box in it that the owner didn't even know about. He fixed all the mechanisms. Earrings we were able to fix without soldering. We had a horologist or a clock fixer come up in East Nassau, which was unbelievable. Somebody's fixing a screen door. They were able to send the person out to go get screen at the local place, the hardware store right around the corner, and get that fixed on the spot. And this was a little parrot, a little toy. I mean, anything that people, want, we can try to fix, and we're happy to do it. And so here was the sweater. She had it opened up because it was too tight. And then this is a vacuum cleaner. And that's we have our little fixed poses there. The Repair Cafe is turning 10 in this year. And I just wanted to say that John Wackman had the vision for a repair cafe here in the Hudson Valley, but critical to his success was the involvement and support of the New Paltz Climate Action Coalition, which they saw the repair cafe as an action that would not only keep things out of the landfill, but also build resiliency in the community. And in town after town that has joined us, fixers have joined hand in hand with climate action committees, green committees, and environmental councils to make that happen. So that has really been a nice, it might appeal to people who like to fix things, but we've really had the backs and had our backs been had by all the environmental folks in the towns. And repair cafes do help you if you want to apply for the Climate Smart Communities program. You have to hold 2 cafes in 3 years to meet that need. And there's a little link for where to find your coordinator in your area to help you if you would like to. If you wanted to start a repair cafe in your town, you contact me and I would support you. We are trying not to expand too far, but I'm happy to send you some resources to get you started, even if you're outside of our area. And my sister lives in Corning, and I met with the librarian there because how could I not? So, please feel free to reach out. And again, one of our resources is this book, Repair Revolution by John, which we pass out to everyone as we recommend that they read it. It really tells you how to start a cafe. And then that was it. We have a lot of fun at the cafes, and sometimes it's a way to get people involved in climate action and environmental sustainability without them really knowing it. And it's just a different aspect. And it's a nice way to get people thinking about ways we can change our behavior without feeling stressed. So that's sort of a positive.
Thank you so much, Susie. Excited to talk more about that. Okay, so next up we have Emily from the Hudson River Watershed Alliance.
Great. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Before I share my screen, can I just get maybe a show of hands or some other indicator of how many of you are connected with your local watersheds or watershed groups or watershed projects? Just like some nodding, some hands. Okay, great. Great. So I'm going to talk through some of those, but it's just helpful to get, basic familiarity as we jump right in. So my name is Emily Vale. I'm the executive director of the Hudson River Watershed Alliance. We're based in Kingston, but we're a regional nonprofit that works throughout the Hudson Valley. And I like to always start off with what a watershed is, because when we're thinking about watersheds, we're often thinking about multiple municipalities. And so much of the work on climate action is done by municipalities, but there's a lot of watershed interconnections as well. So the watershed is the land area where water flows to a specific water body. It includes rain, streams, and groundwater that all end up in a specific place. The tributary is a smaller stream that flows into a larger river. And for the most part, watersheds are defined by topography. So the Hudson River watershed from Lake Tier of the Clouds and the Adirondacks all the way down to New York City is about 13,400 square miles. It includes the Upper Hudson watershed, the Mohawk River watershed, and the Hudson River Estuary watershed. You see those in the different colors. And then each tributary also has its own watershed. So watersheds are very scalable, and depending on the type of problem or what's going on, we can think about, the Hudson River watershed as a whole, or we can start to hone in on more specific watersheds or sub-watersheds that might align with some of these challenges. So watersheds are the geographic unit best suited to understanding conditions and managing water bodies. They're very useful. They rarely align with municipal boundaries. That's a challenge. And land use and activities within the watershed have a direct impact on waters downstream. So if we're looking at a particular water body, this is a map of the Quassaic Creek watershed. If we're interested in what's going on in the Quassaic Creek proper, we really need to look to the whole land area that drains to the Quassaic Creek to improve conditions. And watersheds are also really key to understanding and adapting to water-related climate impacts. I think for a long time, there's been this silo of, climate change is different from water. And the water cycle is entirely climate driven, right? Like these processes are so deeply interconnected, and it's so important to consider climate and water thinking about a watershed scale. So particularly if we're worried about flooding, but also drought, erosion of stream banks, and water quality. This is a photo of a harmful algal bloom last summer in New Paltz that was driven by drought and high temperatures. And with more extreme weather that we're looking at from climate change, we're going to see more water quality impacts in addition to quantity like flooding and drought. So all of these things are really interrelated. So the Hudson River Watershed Alliance works across the region to unite and empower communities to protect our shared waters. We do this by supporting community-based watershed groups, working to improve coordination across municipalities, and communicating as a collective voice on watershed issues. We work with a lot of watershed groups. Again, these are community-based initiatives. They are largely volunteer run. We have some intermunicipal councils. We have some watershed groups that are led by agencies or nonprofits. And each watershed group has a slightly different organizational structure, a slightly different focus. They're really community driven, so they're really unique. But all of them have really strong local knowledge of the watershed, and they're advocating for its health in a variety of different ways. And for each of these watershed groups, they really rely on collaboration to get projects done. So collaboration takes a variety of different forms, but again, there's a lot of opportunity here in thinking about climate smart communities. So the types of activities that watershed groups undertake, they convene stakeholders on issues, they coordinate different types of projects, they do a lot of work to educate residents. They promote stewardship like tree planting or stream cleanups. They monitor water quality. They partner with academic institutions on research projects, and many also work to create watershed plans, which we'll be talking more about in a moment. So in terms of climate smart communities, there's several actions in Pledge Element 7 that are directly related to watershed-based work. So whether or not you have an active watershed group, there may be some opportunities to get points for some of these actions. So for example, flood mitigation plans with a hydrologic and hydraulic assessment. We've had several watersheds go through that kind of planning process. You can get points for that in climate smart communities. Watershed characterizations and plans that focus on water quality, some examples of that as well. A lot of places are working on the Drinking Water Source Protection Program, DWSP2 framework, to protect drinking water supplies. And there's watershed scale planning there that goes on as well with climate smart communities points, and also vulnerability assessments to analyze and prioritize climate hazards and risks. So a couple of years ago, the Hudson River Watershed Alliance was working with municipalities on community resilience building workshops, and some of our municipalities have submitted those to get climate smart, pretty significant climate smart communities as well. Couple other actions in Pledge Element 7 that are directly related to watershed work: riparian buffer planting and restoration. I know Town of Gardner got some climate smart community points for their work with Trees for Trips in the Hudson Valley. Nature-based shorelines, green infrastructure for stormwater management, culvert right sizing and dam removal. That's an area of focus for a lot of watershed groups. Conserving natural areas, and water conservation and reuse. So I pulled out some information. I had a bullet, find your local group, and like, I can help you do that. Like, I can do that for you. And many of you are already connected with your watershed groups. But I wanted to pull together some information about each of the cohort members on some watershed stuff that you might be involved with already, but could be on your radar for climate smart communities points too. So Town of Chatham, Town of Kinderhook, Village of Kinderhook, Village of Valatia, you are all in the Kinderhook Creek watershed. And that watershed will be getting a Resilient New York watershed-based flood study by SLR Consulting as part of the greater Stockport Creek watershed. So the Kinderhook flows into the Stockport Creek, and that whole watershed will be getting this hydraulic and hydrologic flood study that you can get points for. SLR Consulting is doing a variety of these across the region through this Resilient New York program that's supported by New York State DEC. And so that will be on the horizon. I'm not sure exactly what their time frame is, but they're working their way up from south to north. And they just did the one in Kingston. So probably Columbia County is on its way. Village of Philmont, Agawammock Creek, and the Claverack Creek. So Agawammock is tributary to the Claverack Creek. Village of Philmont right now is working on a watershed plan with the Department of State. And also as part of the greater Stockport Creek watershed, you'll also be getting that Resilient New York watershed-based flood study. Village of Catskill, of course, Catskill Creek watershed. Catskill Creek watershed management plan was published in 2020. That could be an opportunity to get some points. And also Resilient New York watershed-based flood study from SLR Consulting. This is just a huge opportunity. And I think they haven't done a lot of outreach to let people necessarily know that this is happening. So the more I can try to make those connections, hopefully the better. The Village of Millbrook, Town of Stamford, you're both in the Wappinger Creek watershed. The Wappinger Creek Watershed Intermunicipal Council is an active watershed group. They are working on wrapping up a watershed plan right now, so there's opportunities there as well. Town of Shangam, and I just want to pause and say that Valatia and Shangam are two of my favorite, most incorrectly pronounced municipality names, and to have you both in a cohort is really special. Town of Shangam, Wallkill River Watershed. The Wallkill River Watershed Alliance is a very active watershed group working on all kinds of different projects. Town of Amenia, outside of the Hudson River Watershed, but in the Housatonic 10-Mile River Watershed, you're probably connected with the Housatonic Valley Association and know about the recently published 10-Mile River Watershed Plan. I wanted to also mention that we have a report called Work on Watersheds that profiles success stories from 32 different community-based watershed groups across the region. And so if you want other ideas of the types of things that watershed groups do, that gives a really good outline of some of the opportunities. So in terms of setting up collaborations with watershed groups, I think it's really helpful to talk to your local watershed groups. What are they working on? What are you working on? Is there alignment with any climate smart communities pledge elements? There very well could be. And there's also opportunities here to leverage both watershed group and municipal strengths. So thinking about local knowledge, these educational opportunities, and the networks that each of you have. Many watershed groups partner with municipalities and can really take advantage of municipal strengths and then vice versa. So I also wanted to mention that watershed groups are also working on community engagement actively. So again, there might be some overlap in goals to be working together. And if watershed initiatives include multiple municipalities, there may be opportunities for several to get points. So the language in the pledge elements is inclusive of, if you have a portion of your municipality in that particular watershed that received this plan, you can still get points for that. I also wanted to quickly mention, in addition to our work with community-based watershed groups, we're also doing a lot of work with municipal governments. The Hudson River Watershed Alliance helps coordinate the Hudson River Flood Resilience Network, which is a group of municipal leaders from Hudson Riverfront communities that work together on current and future flood risks. And I wanted to mention this in particular because I know Village of Catskill is in the room, and Village of Catskill was one of the founders of this network. We are working on a strategic roadmap now and are likely to be expanding participation out to all municipalities within the Hudson Valley, not just Hudson River shoreline, but stay tuned on that. So I just wanted to let you know that might be happening. This network has virtual and in-person meetings to share information and strategies and supports peer learning, very similar to what you all do here with Local Champions. We also have a regular watershed breakfast webinar series on the second Thursday of every month from 8:30 to 9:30 on Zoom. And this season, we're focusing on state grants and technical assistance opportunities. Our next one is on Thursday in the morning on Hudson Estuary Trees for Trips program, which that is also a Climate Smart Communities pledge element. And I also wanted to mention that we have an upcoming webinar series. We'll be doing case studies of water-related Climate Smart Communities actions that folks have gotten points for, just to have all this information in one place. So water and climate, very interrelated, lots of opportunities. Thanks so much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you, Emily. And again, I'll share the slides after this because there's so many great links for folks to check out. Okay, and then last but not least, of course, we have Rebecca from the Mid-Hudson Library System.
Well, thank you, Vanessa, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. You might be familiar with your local library, but you might not know there is an organization called a public library system helping to power each local library in the Hudson Valley. And that's where I work, the Mid-Hudson Library System. We're chartered by the Board of Regents to provide cooperative services among 66 libraries in the Hudson Valley. And so we do a lot of work in the overarching space of ensuring the public's right to free access to information, which encompasses many, many things, from software systems to negotiating with vendors to physical delivery system, all sorts of things to make sure that every member of our communities has equal access to information and education in every town across the Hudson Valley. So no small task. But as we all know, with the advent of climate change and the need for climate change adaptation, really every job is a climate job. So we've been hard at work here for the past decade thinking about how libraries play a role in that work. And in fact, our own organization just became the first public library system in the country to be certified as a sustainable library through the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. Thanks, Vanessa. All right.
Amazing.
So it was a lot of work. It was 140 actions, a few more than you're doing for climate smart communities, but it really helped us look at from our policies to how we operate the buildings, how we treat the land we have, how we do transportation. Everything got a look from that lens of the triple bottom line of how it was impacting the environment, equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as the economic feasibility of it in the face of the tax dollars that help support the work that we do here. So I just want to say, I feel like I'm with my people this morning. I'm not dragging people along with me to understand this. I don't have to spend too much time talking about the triple bottom line and climate adaptation, but I just want to kind of paint the picture here for folks that might not have visited their local library in a while. Public libraries have been along a long time. They are a uniquely American institution. They are in every town across the land here in New York. We are we've got a lot of libraries in New York, over 756. And really, we are the grandmothers and grandfathers of modeling the sharing economy and leveraging local tax dollars to the advantage of our community members for a public good, which is pretty amazing. I think if we tried to start public libraries today from scratch, we might have a fight on our hands, but we're going to get away with our subversive mission here for the time being. Because the cool thing is libraries are for everyone. You don't have to pay to come through the door. We don't care what your grades were in school, or if you went to college, or how much money you make. Everybody is welcome. Every kid gets a fair shot at doing great at school. Everyone has a chance to learn how to use technology to make their lives better. And I think the big fallacy out there is that, oh, it's just kind of a warehouse of books, right? But libraries have never actually been about books. I hate to break it to those book lovers on the call this morning. I myself am one of them. But we have always been about what's inside those books, the information, the education, the literature that helps you to connect with the wider human experience, all of which trying to include the idea that if we all understood each other and had respect and empathy for one another, we might all be able to come together and make the world a better place. So over the past decade, we've really supercharged the options available to us to go beyond traditional media like books and perhaps movies, and really think about using that sharing economy to supercharge community resilience. And so what your local library might have today might surprise you. We have things called the Library of Things, where we're lending all sorts of stuff to help community members. We're helping folks like Susie host repair cafes. We're getting folks out into the great outdoors and connect with nature and understand the wider world around them. And we really, in my language, we call it empowerment engines for people that want to do good. So in the upper right of that slide, you see a group of teenagers from the Pauling Library here in Dutchess County. And two of those young women walked through the doors of our library and asked if they could borrow the meeting space. And the policy didn't allow for folks under the age of 18 to do so. But the youth services librarian was smart enough to ask, well, why are you asking? And they said to her, we want to make the world suck less. And the librarian said, cool, that's what we do here. And they ended up changing the policy, letting the kids use the room. They turned over the programming budget to the kids, and the kids decided what it looked like to make the world better in their little corner of the world. So for any Harry Potter fans on the line, we are the room of requirement. We can be what communities need, from meeting space to research assistance to a place for people to come together and learn together. So with the thanks of the Partners for Climate Action of Hudson Valley, we've designed a new program called the Library of Local. And the idea here is, can we leverage what libraries have to offer with great strategy and deliberation towards building self-reliance and community resilience? So each Library of Local library, of which there are 17 in the Hudson Valley, is equipped with a special collection. You'll see these beautiful kiosks that were designed by Johnny Pook in Rosendale. They house special collections of books and movies, as well as seed libraries and tool lending libraries for gardening. And they offer special programming that's very targeted on specific topics. In year one, it was food security. Year two, climate solutions. Year three, we're looking at pollination. But of course, we're pretty open to what folks want to learn about. And so we make that distinction based on what that local community is interested in learning about. But interestingly, in year two, what we did is we overlaid the locations chosen with climate smart communities, because we really wanted to accelerate and give, I think, voice to those communities that had really committed at that municipal level to do work in this area, and show libraries as aligned partners in that work. So you're going to get the copy of the slides. As Vanessa said, this is a list of the participating libraries, but any of the materials can be borrowed by anyone in the Hudson Valley, which is one of the best things about libraries in the Hudson Valley. They all cooperate. But just a few fun facts for you. Of the books we have in that collection, they circulate at a rate 30% higher than other nonfiction books in the collection. So we know there's a lot of residents in this area that are very interested in learning more about these topics. We also are offering more than 80 tools for lending, 12 seed varieties for folks to borrow and repopulate at the end of growing seasons. And the programs are wildly successful. The vast majority of folks agree what we're doing here is helping to build self-reliance and resiliency in our communities. And I think it goes to that non-traditional learning style. Different people learn in different ways. Some people need a book. Some people need to talk to an expert expert. Some people want to have a hands-on experience. And so our libraries are looking to diversify how people connect with this information and come together to problem solve in the long term. So we participated in the Climate Carnival this summer. It was awesome. Just the interactions with folks who are looking to learn and to do better and finding what they need through their local library has been super gratifying. And I think some of the things you'll see at our libraries, this is the Kingston Library in Ulster County, very urban environment, very little green space on the site for that library, but they built little raised bed gardens. And they were telling me that they know radishes are super popular because that's what gets stolen the most out of the community garden. But, I was there one day when there was a bunch of teenagers doing a cooking demonstration with vegetables they grew at the library. And so I think helping folks connect more with nature, understand where their food comes from, libraries can be these learning labs for folks that want to learn more about that, and a really positive place for kids to identify kind of what they view as the future of work and making their community a better place. So I'll say one of the things we're most proud of is this project, the Library of Local, has resulted in so many new partnerships. As we find others doing work in this space, just like you are, we find these common callings to work together because we understand we have to work together in wider circles to have the impact necessary to prepare our communities for what is happening and what will be happening in the future due to climate change. So I'm just going to close with one last little story, again, at the Kingston Library. So those of you that may or may not live in an urban environment, when anyone comes running through the doors of a public library, the staff really perk up. And these 4 kids ran in the library and said, "Help, we need help." And the staff were like, "Oh, we're calling 911. What's going on?" They're like, "No. We're working on a garden project. We need the tools." And so they knew the library was a place that was going to help them figure that out. And I think that's the cool thing about libraries is even if the staff didn't know or didn't have those tools, they would still help those kids figure it out. So I encourage you to think of your library as a partner in the work that you're doing, whether you need research help, a place to meet or hold an event, or you want to borrow stuff that's going to help educate everyone in your committee on a particular topic. Libraries are really eager to help and willing partners in the work that you're doing. I wanted to share my contact information. If you're not within the Mid-Hudson Library System, which covers Columbia, Greene, Dutchess, Ulster, and Putnam counties, I'm pretty well connected outside of our region too when it comes to libraries, and can always connect you with folks that might be useful to the work that you're doing. But Vanessa, thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to the breakout groups.
Thank you, Rebecca. Amazing, really inspiring. I love the thinking about libraries as the old school sharing economy. It's awesome.